Seches Bava Kamma Daf Chav Zayin concludes the second parak of the Masechta with a number of cases, halachos mentioned by Rabba or Rava, discussing what happens when someone falls from a height and the hezek that he causes, who's chayiv for what in those situations. Then we'll begin the third parak, which takes us to the halachos of the bar, something left in the middle of the street. The Gemara will begin by discussing if you trip over somebody's object in the middle of the street, do you have to pay for damage you caused to that? And we'll see for a number of opinions on that subject. So let's begin. The Gemara is listing halachos of somebody who fell. So the Gemara has a case of somebody actually who threw a baby off a roof, and the baby was on his way from a very great height, so he was going to die when he hit the ground, and an ox came along and caught the baby on his horns and killed him that way. So in this gruesome scenario, the question is the ox obligated, is the owner of the ox obligated to pay a kaifer for his ox having killed the child when the child was anyway going to die a few seconds later? So the Gemara says it's dependent on Machlokas between Rabbi Shmuel and Yochanan ben Breka, how you calculate kaifer. Is kaifer calculated based on the value of the mazik, or is it calculated based on the value of the nizik? If it's the value of the mazik, so the ox still has value as any normal case, and the kaifer can be paid as usual. If it's the value of the nizik, though, since the child was falling, he had no value at that moment, and therefore there would be no kaifer to pay if you're calculating his value. Now, the source for that is a brisa that says v'nasan pidyon nafshay, and nafshay, the question is that the nizik or is that the mazik? Next halacha Rabba says is if somebody falls off a roof and he lands on a woman, and in his fall he ends up doing a bia. So the Gemara says that he has to pay the four dvarim, nezik, tzari, posheves, and baishis. And even though for a shegeg, one does not have to pay the other four things besides for the nezik, here we're talking about where it was a ruach matsuya, was a common wind, and he's therefore partially responsible for what he did. Should have realized that he would fall. It's called karev lemezid, and he is responsible for it. However, the bia doesn't count as a bia with kavana, and therefore if she was his yivimtai, he is not kind of her with that, even though bia is kind of on a yavama, even b'shegeg, there has to at least be kavana for bia. But the shegeg there would be as if he had kavana for someone else, but here it didn't have to do a bia at all. That doesn't count as a bia b'shegeg. That's not what we mean when we say a bia b'shegeg is kind of yivimtai, and therefore this is not kind of, it's not a bia in that halacha. Now, the Gemara adds that although he needs to pay for those four things, he doesn't have to pay for the baishes. The reason for that is because we have a mission that says you don't pay for the baishes unless there is actual kavana. You can't embarrass someone without intending to do that. Now, Rabba continues and he has another case very similar. This time he fell off the roof, but it was a ruach she'eina mitzuya, so it was considered to be a real shegeg. So here he's chayiv only for the nezik, but he's potter for the other things. And again, because there are other things that are not chayiv b'shegeg. And we continue speaking about if he fell off and he caused a hezek. And this time Rabbi talks about a ruach mitzuya by a regular hezek, and it says that if he called a hezek and he called an embarrassment to someone, he's chayiv for the four things. And again, it'll be nezik, tzaripo, and sheves, but not for the baishes, because did not have kavana. Now, if however he twisted on the way down as he was falling and he intended to land on the person, maybe to break his fall, then he did intentionally land on them, and then he's therefore is chayav for the baishis that he causes. Now the Gemara gives a source of that. It says v'sholcha yada, referring to where a woman gets involved in a fight that her husband's having, and she reaches out and she grabs the attacker in a sensitive area and causes a hezek and a busha to him. So it says v'sholcha yada v'chzika. She stretches out her hand and grabs. So the Gemara says, why do you have to say v'chzika? I would know that. And that's to teach that you have to have kavana to be mazik, even though you don't have kavana to be mevayesh. Then therefore you chai for the bushes in that scenario. Now, the Gemara talks about if somebody places a coal and burns someone. So Rabbah has a few cases here. So if he places a coal on the heart of another living human being and that person neglects to remove it and therefore it causes him to die, the person who placed it there is potter. It's not his fault that that person didn't remove the coal. Therefore he's not chayiv. He's not a murderer for that. If, however, he puts it on a person's clothing and it burns the clothing, and then he is chayiv, he is responsible, and that person doesn't have to remove it. He could prefer to have the clothing be burnt and collect the damages. Rava says both of these halachas are learned. We see them in a Mishnah. So where do you see them? So as far as killing a person when he could have escaped, so it's his fault. So we have the case where somebody pushes someone else into a furnace or into a fire or into water, and he holds him there, or he pushes him in a way that that person can't get out on his own. Then of course he's a murderer, so he's chayiv. But if he pushed him in a way that he could get out and he doesn't come out, then the person who pushed him in there is not responsible for the death, because it's that person's responsibility for not escaping. Now, that's that halacha. And as far as the clothing, we have a Mishnah that says that if somebody says to someone else, rip my shirt or break my jug, and that person decides to do that, he'll be chayiv, because he can invite someone to do something like that, and he's chayiv for the damage that he caused. Now, of course, if he said it, do this to me and you'll be putter, on the condition that you won't need to pay, then if he does it, he does not have to pay, because that was the agreement. Now, Rava asks, what happens if he puts a coal on the heart of his eved? Does the eved count as another person, and therefore he's responsible to take it off himself, or does the eved count as your property, and therefore he's not responsible to take it off himself? And therefore you would be chayiv for killing him. Now, if you say he counts as a person, will be lach of a shar, an animal. Is the shar responsible to take the coal off, or is the shar also not responsible? Now he resolves the issue, and he says the eved counts as a person, and therefore it's his responsibility. The shar counts as property, and it's not. Okay, this concludes second parak case at a regal. Now we begin the third parak Kamma. If a short Mishnah that discusses someone who leaves a kad, a jug, it's important to know the word kad is used here. He leaves a jug in the middle of a Rishus Harabim, someone else comes and trips over it. Again, he doesn't step on it on purpose, he trips over it, and he breaks it. So the halach is he's not chayiv to pay for the fact that he broke it. The Gemara will discuss why. Shouldn't he have watched where he was walking? Now, the next line in the Mishnah could be read two different ways, depending on where you put the comma. It could be, if he was damaged by it, meaning he was injured, the owner of the chavis, the word chavis is used here, the owner of the barrel is chayiv to pay for his injury. Or it could be read as, if the owner of the chavis was injured, then the person who broke it is chayiv to pay for his injury. The Gemara will discuss which of those is the correct reading. Okay, so let's begin. The Gemara first has a linguistic issue to clear up over here. We started off speaking about a kad, we ended up talking about a chavis. Kad is generally translated as a jug, which implies something small. Chavis is a barrel, which is something large. The Gemara wants to know, why did we switch? Which is it? Was it a kad? Was it a chavis? The Gemara quotes two other places where we also start off where we use the terms kad and chavis interchangeable. We have a Mishnah that says we have two people walking. One is carrying a chavis, a barrel, and another is carrying a beam, and the beam knocks into the kad, the jug. So there we switched terms. Then they are both patur for the accident, is the Mishnah there, because they both had permission to walk where they were walking. And again, what we need from this is that the word kad and chavis are used interchangeably again. The next case is the Mishnah that says if somebody is coming with a chavis, a barrel of wine, and someone else is coming with a kad of honey, a jug of honey, and the barrel of honey breaks, and just there we use the word interchangeably again. Before it was a jug of honey, now it's a barrel of honey. So that breaks, and the person with the wine decides to pour out his wine and save the honey. So the halach is he only has to pay for his work. He doesn't have to pay for the wine that person lost. But again, our issue is only the switch of the term kad to chavis and chavis to kad. So why are these words being used interchangeably? So says Rav Papa, the reason is because they are interchangeable. A kad is a chavis is a kad. Either one could mean either thing. Either one can mean a jug. Either one can mean the barrel. Gemara says, why do we need to know that? Gemara says, as far as commerce, if somebody promises to deliver a chavis and then all he delivers is a small jug, he could say, this is what I call a chavis, and there's no claim against that. That is the deal they made for a chavis, and this qualifies as a chavis. So Mar asks, it shouldn't be dependent on what you want to call it on this halacha. It should be dependent on the local language. If it's a place where when people say chavis, they mean a barrel, or when they say kad, they mean a jugs, this Mishnah is irrelevant because that's not the term that people use. And if it's a place where people do use the terms interchangeably, so it's used interchangeably, I don't need this Mishnah to teach me that halacha. Someone says, no, the halacha is relevant in a place where the majority of people have the term kada only means a jug and not a chavas, and the term chavas only means a barrel and not a jug. However, there is a minority that reverses it. And the argument here is that you have the person claiming he's from the minority, and therefore he only owes a jug, even though he said chavis. And the other one says, no, we should follow the roif. The majority call a chavis a large barrel. You can't give me a jug instead. On that, the halacha is you don't follow the roif because we say ein halchem moment acharoiv. Instead, we say ma'aseh mechaver al varaya. If you want to take money away from someone, you have to prove it. And that is the concept of ein halchem moment acharoiv, which we see in a number of places in Shas. Okay, now the Gemara refers back to the Mishnah to discuss the halacha of the person who tripped on the jug. The Gemara wants to know, why is he not responsible for breaking the jug? Shouldn't a person watch where he's going, and therefore it's his responsibility? So Gemara gives 4 answers. 3 of them assume that the person is responsible to watch where he's going, and here we have an extenuating circumstance. The other one says, no, a person is not responsible to watch where he's going, and those are the main differences in halacha. So the 3 answers that say he is responsible to watch where he's going. So first you have Rav, who says that the entire area was filled with the barrels. There was nowhere else he could have walked, and that's why he's not responsible for avoiding it, because he couldn't. Shmuel says we're referring to where it was the dark, was at night, and therefore he couldn't see it. And Rav Echad says it was around the corner, and he couldn't see it before he stepped on it. Now, Rav Papa says the Mishnah fits better if you say the second and the third answer, that it was the dark or it was around the corner, he couldn't see it. It doesn't. There's a problem if you want to say that the entire street was filled with jugs, because if that's true, then he should even be allowed to step on it and be putter. He has a right to walk on the street, and if the person who put the jug there is filled the entire street, it shouldn't make a difference if he tripped on it or he stepped on it on purpose. Even if he stepped on it on purpose, he should be putter, because he has a right to walk there and he couldn't avoid it. The Mishnah, though, doesn't apply that. The Mishnah implies it's only if he tripped over it that he's patur, but if he stepped on purpose, then he's chayev. That fits better if it was around the corner or if it was in the dark. There, if he had stomped on it on purpose, he would be chayev. The only reason he's patur is because he didn't know it was there. So for that, the Gemara answer is no. It could really be that actually the halacha is that even if he steps on it on purpose, he's patur, like Shmuel said, because the entire street is filled with them. The reason why we said the word tripped is because we want to talk about the latter case, where if he tripped over it and he's injured, there you're only responsible, the owner of the drug is only responsible to pay for his injury if he tripped. Had he stepped on it on purpose, then you wouldn't be responsible to pay for the injury because it's his own problem for stepping on the jug. You don't have an excuse, you don't have a claim if you're injured in a situation like that. Now, the 4th answer is Rav Abba to Rav Ashi, quoting the Marava in the name of Rav Ula. And he says people don't have to watch where they're going. People don't normally look at the ground, and therefore it is the fault of the person who put it there for tripping the guy. And it's his responsibility. He doesn't get paid anything. Instead, he loses for breaking it, and he might potentially actually be chayav for the damages he caused the other guy as well. So where it says with the incident that happened in Naharda, and Shmuel was mechayev the person to pay for it, in Pumbedisa, and Rav was mechayev the person to pay for it. According to some versions, it's a Rabbah. So the Gemara says that means that these two are both holding that a person is responsible to look where he's going, unless he couldn't see, of course. So that fits with what Shmuel said. Shmuel had said that the entire street was filled. Shmuel said that the case here was talking about when it was at night and he couldn't see, and that would be why he's learning that in an ordinary case where you could see, the person is responsible to pay for it. So why, though, did Rabbah say that he is responsible to pay for it? Is that because he holds like Shmuel? Someone says, no, it could be that he holds actually like the people of Marava, but although ordinarily a person is not responsible to look where he's going, here he's chayav for it, and he is responsible to look where he's going because it was put on a corner near the wine press or the olive press, and it's common to have jugs on the floor there, and there a person is responsible to look where he's going. The Gemara now begins another seemingly unrelated sugya, and that's the sugya of Avid Inish Dina Lanafshi. Is a person allowed to take the law into his own hands? If he's being ripped off, is he allowed to act to defend his property on his own, to take it back from someone who steals from him, or does he have to go to court under all circumstances? So it begins with a message sent from Rav Nachman, discussing how much a person has to pay for an embarrassment that he causes someone else by hitting him. So we have a list of the cost for various types of embarrassment. Depending what you hit him with, the embarrassment might be greater. So if you hit someone with your knee, that costs 3 slime. If you kick him in the bottom of your foot, it's 5 slime. If you hit him with a saddle of a donkey, that's 13 slime. And if you hit him with the handle or the blade of a hoe, that's the question. That's what he's asking him. How much do you pay for that? So he sent back his the chista, you're in Vavel. How could you collect for embarrassment? Embarrassment is a knas. Knas can only be collected in Eretz Yisrael, not in Vavel. So I don't know what you're doing. Tell me the exact story, how it happened, and let's see what we can do for you. So he said, okay, the case was that there were 2 people who owned a well in partnership, and their deal was that they would alternate which day they're allowed to draw water. And then one of them came and he was drawing the water on the day that he's not supposed to. So the other person accosted him and said, why are you taking my water? And he ignored him, or you just continued to take his water. So that guy went and hit him with a hoe. He hit him with either the blade or the handle of the hoe. So Rav Nachman responded, he said he should have hit him 100 times. He was taking his water. And therefore he's saying that a person is allowed to take the law into his own hands. Now there's generally a machlokes, which we'll see later, is a person allowed to take the law into his own hands or not. But here, Rav Nachman says, even according to the opinion that generally one cannot take the law into his own hands, that's only in a case where there's no loss, where you can go to court and you're not going to lose anything. Here, he's going to lose. Rashi explains the well might dry up. He might lose all the water, and therefore, everyone agrees here he's allowed to take the law into his own hands, and he did the right thing. He doesn't need to pay anything. Now, let's see that machlokes itself. So, can you take the law into your own hands? So, this machlokes, Rabbi Yehuda says, you cannot take the law in your own hands. Rav Nachman says you are allowed to. And we continue here in this Shmaita, so yeah, where there is a loss, everyone agrees you're allowed to take the law into your own hands to prevent the loss. Where there's no loss, that's what there's a machlokes. Rabbi Yehuda says, since you're not going to lose anything, you should go to court. Rav Nachman says you have a right to do whatever you want, since the halacha is like you and it's clear. You have a right to claim your property on your own. You don't have to do anything. You don't have to run to court to defend you. Now, says the Gemara, let's bring a proof. Rav Kahana brings a proof from a statement of the Tana ben Bagbag. He says that if a person wants to claim something from his friend that he belongs to him, he shouldn't sneak into his chutzner to steal it like a thief in the night. He should come in force, break his teeth, and tell him, I'm taking my thing. You see clearly, though, Ben Bagbag is saying that you're allowed to take something. You can do the law on your own, so you can take the law into your own hands. So it's a kasha on Yehuda. So he responded and he said, don't bring him right from Ben Bagbag, he's an individual. The Rabbanan disagree on this entire thing. And Rabbi Yanai said a different answer. He said, what does it mean when you say break his teeth? It doesn't mean that you could physically accost him. He meant go to court and force him to give up the property with the court speaking on your behalf. So the Gemara has a kasha on that. If that's true, then the wording here should be different. It shouldn't be that he says to him, I'm taking my thing. It should be they say to him, meaning to the owner, to the person who's holding it, he's taking his thing. That's the correct thing because it's the court that's speaking and not the original owner. The Gemara says a kasha that is indeed a bit of a difficulty.